I do agree with him. I'm angry 95% of the time. You just can't tell. Like, people have their battles. Mine's anger. So I got to think the opposite of what my mind's telling me when I get angry. And act completely opposite of what's natural. And the natural thing to do is lash out. And so it's a lot easier to control. It's in me. And it's a lot easier to, and I know why God is allowing me to stay this way, because I'm pissy, I'm pushy when it comes to going up against the devil. He hits hard, I run at him with my stomach. My doctor's like, you got to lose weight. I'm like, this is my superpower. It's what I use to take down patients when they're acting up. I go stomach full force, and they're like, oh, this is heavy. No joke. I'm going to use the theme. I'm going to use it a lot. If you don't like it, put earplugs in. Because, Pastor Omar, I'm the kind of guy that is, what you see here, I'm the same down there. I'm just who I am. And people that really know me know this is the way I am. And they're like, oh, God, help them. I was hearing about Numbers 13 when Joshua and Caleb went into the promised land. It was a mandate from God for them to go in there and spy out this land and to look and bring back a report. And they were obedient to God, that they brought back this great report of how great the land was. This is what God does, is he's mandating his people to do things. We look at 1 Kings 17. God mandated ravens. Now think about this. He commanded these birds to feed Elijah while the drought was going on, and they were obedient to God. They didn't sway from it. They brought him meat and bread. He had water from the brook, but they brought him the provisions he needed to survive during that time. And then God tells him to go down to this city and inquire of a widow who God commanded, but she didn't have no clue that God commanded her. All she was going to do was go make enough bread for her and her son so they could die. This is all that her mind was on. And he said, make it for me first. And then boom, God not only blessed her, but when her son died, Elijah raised him from the dead. So it's like there's a mandate where God commands us to be, effective in his life, and people get blessed. We walk into their lives not because we're great. I'm actually the most unqualified person up here. Because the closer I get to God, the more I realize how unqualified I am to be where I am and doing what I'm doing. But it's because God mandated it years ago. When God spoke to me and my wife in 2001 that he was going to send us to North Glen, Colorado. This was before we even went to pastor in San Diego. And we wrote it down, and she hung to it, because I'm sorry, guys, I hate the cold. I really hate the cold. Maybe that's why I like all that really hot, spicy food. I was thinking last night, I don't have no talents. I do. I can eat some of the hottest chilies in the world. And it will not faze me one bit. But it's like, God, when he told us, she held on to that. I have been through so much stuff. I have had people come against me telling me I wasn't called to pastor, I wasn't called to preach. And in my mind, I'm thinking, little man, who in the world are you to say that God has not called me? You know, God called me years ago when I was in Pastor Moon's church, and I was at the altar, and I was crying out to God, and God already told me back then. So when I sit there, I'm thinking, you know, God didn't push you out of the way and, you know, move out of the way and put you there and say, okay, you start telling this guy what he's going to do. And so I began to hold on to that because I knew that's what God's plan and God's command and his mandate was for my life. Just checking my heart rate. I don't want to blow the battery in my pacemaker, and then all of a sudden I'm going, and you guys are looking at me like, what's wrong with that dude? Someone will have, well, Charles will have to come out here, pull a plug out, cut it, and zzz, and I'll go. So I know. See, these are the kind of friends you need. You know, God started dealing with my wife. It's time to go back. I didn't want the cold. I'm honest. I'm a California guy. I love the weather. I love the beach. I wouldn't go surfing now because if I put on a wetsuit, they'd be like an all-you-can-eat smorgasbord. Sharks. Because it was shark-infested water we surfed in. So, it was my thing. And I fought with God and fought with God and fought with God. And, you know, you fight with God. He's patient. He'll wear you down. And so one day I'm driving to work to pick her up to her job. And I'm like, Lord, you know, we were always taught that we don't listen to our wives. That they need to submit. Yes, I was praying that because I was angry. I didn't want to come out here. And I'm all, God, you need to take this out of her. And I told him just like that. You got to love God and his graciousness. Because he's all, how do you know I didn't put that in her? And I just froze as I'm going on the turn on the freeway. He's all, I'm not going to take it out of her. I put it in there. Yes, I was like, God, that's not fair. You didn't tell me first. I'm the man. So I'm like, all right, God, I'll go. Once I said that, it left her. He quit bugging her, and he prepared the way. We got out here, and right away went to Pastor Mike's church, and I submitted to his headship, brought myself under him as my pastor. And I looked at him, I said, I don't want a pastor. I don't. And he was all, don't worry, we're not going to do that now. And then God started dealing with her again. I'm like, Lord, I talked to you. I'm different now. I'm not I am angry, but I'm not as angry. Not wanting to go beat up that pastor no more, you know. Why her? And so we began to seek God, and God began to open doors. And when we got sent out, God already had a building for us. That Monday that we got that building, from that Friday of being sent out, because God had mandated it years and years and years. He had set it up. Like when you look at Jeremiah 1:5, he says, before I shaped you in the womb, I knew all about you. God knows me more than anyone else, more than my wife. He knows my heart. He knows my stinky attitude. He knows how I am. He knows how to talk to me. He knows how to show me things. He knows how to work with me. And it's a lot going to work with you. And the thing is he mandated this way back then. And even though I didn't know what was going on, and I grew up, I was a bad kid. I did get in trouble by myself. I was always put outside of the classroom with my desk because I got in trouble by myself. Apparently, you can't make fun of people in class and get away with it, but I did. And it started from kindergarten when I incited a riot and got all the little kindergartners to start beating each other up. I was the kid that none of the parents wanted their kids playing with. You stay away from that little Benny Gregory. He'll get you in trouble. It was like I was a magnet to trouble. You know, it just found me and it looked good. And thinking about how this was mandated way before I was born, that God would raise me up, send me to San Diego, bring me back, and then send me out here to pastor a church in North Glen, Colorado. Have you ever been to North Glen? It's weird. Sit there and ask God, why North Glen? There's Thornton, there's Westminster, there's Broomfield, there's, forget Commerce City. All that way seems crazy. But I'm like, Lord, why North Glen? Sorry, Pastor Albert, I'm going to do it. So I got these cats. I don't like cats. I prefer dogs, and I would look for the most aggressive dog. And this one I wanted was known for killing a mountain lion. And they actually use it to hunt wild boar. And so my wife, with her crazy idea with the neighbor, because their neighbor's cat had kittens, was trying to hustle a kitten without telling me. And I seen the neighbor, and he's all, oh, your kitten's about ready to come home. I'm like, what? Oh, your wife didn't tell you? No. Oh. So I said, if you get the landlord to okay it, I'll do it. Because her thing is, I work nights, she's home alone, she needs something running around in the house. I don't know why. They're destructive, they're crazy. So we got him. And my heart melted. So then, irresponsible neighbor kicked the mother out again. She got pregnant again. So we got the sister 5 months later. Don't worry, I stopped at 2. I'm not a crazy cat guy. So I'm sitting there and I'm driving to work and I'm asking God, why? Why do I would go to work and he just couldn't wait to get home to see these cats. And that's all I would think about. And I'm like, Lord, why? And he said, cats are the one animal, the one pet. Some people like them, but not everyone likes them. Albert. And he goes, this is the kind of people you're going to reach. So I sat there and I thought, okay. And then he started to show me, he goes, you're going to be this passionate to want to see these people the way you want to see these cats. So I looked at him and I said, Lord, I can't call myself an angry little leprechaun because I'm too wide. So I'm like, Lord, I'm an angry little sumo wrestler. Right? If they had midget sumo wrestling, I'd find it out and I'd try it out. I really would. Just bumping stomachs, grabbing that giant, huge, ugly, fat G-string they wear, and just toss them off the mat. Gave you guys a visual, huh? So bad. But the way he mandates things in us, that he mandated me to have cats where I love aggressive dogs. If I could have got into dog fighting, I would have. I tried. No one wanted to fight my dog. I'm like, come on, I got him from a good line. He's a good dog fighter. And then God took the dogs away. And I'm here stuck with cats. And when I began to look at the city of North Glen, I look at how there's people out there that they fit this mold. They're the rejected. They're the ones no one wants. When you look at teenagers, all adults don't like teenagers because they're mouthy and rebellious. Come to me, my people. Because I am mouthy and rebellious. I get in trouble a lot. And when I begin to read this scripture and I look at, how Elisha, he's just sitting there. He's probably, having his morning cup of coffee and just sipping away. And then, think about it. He just got done getting over Gehazi, who is now full of leprosy, has to sit outside the camp. And so he's got a new disciple. And so he's got to work with him and help him understand that when we see these things, you don't need to panic. That Lord, open his eyes so he can see. There's a lot of times we're praying for the people in our church for God to open their eyes so they can see. But what's going on in the church is they're not getting discipled the way they need to be discipled and worked with. And so we have a lot of dysfunctional church people. Like, why in the world do we got to do marriage counseling when we should do discipleship? I was counseling this one newlywed couple, and it seemed like the more and more we met, the more and more they fought. So I stopped counseling them. They actually started getting along, and they're doing really good. See, you laugh, but here's what happens. You sit before him. You have the wife pointing the finger at the husband pointing the finger at the wife. No one wants to change. If one person in that marriage would change and get close to God, it would rock that whole marriage. It would change things. I was an evil little man. My wife wanted to leave me after 5 years. I didn't read the latest marriage book. God got a hold of me. Because I'd go in the prayer room at church and I'd pray, Lord, you need to change my wife. She's evil. She's mean. And God told me, he goes, no, you change. And I'm like, really, Lord? That's not fair. What about her? She's not submitting. She's not learning what your word says. And you got the, who cares? You change. So God started working on me how to change and how to be the husband I needed to be. But the problem is no one in the marriage wants to change. They just, this wife sees this godly man and tells her husband, why can't you be more like him? Because he just got saved, genius. He's not going to know the whole Bible within a month or two. I had one lady that we were working with, her and her husband, and she would text me, Pastor, I'm going to fast and really fast that God will work in our marriage and God would change him. And then the next week, and she'd tell me, I'm going to fast all week. And then the next week, I'm leaving him. And so I told her, I said, you know what? You need to leave your dead God and come over to my God. Because your God's dead and he's done. Because if you were serving my God, your marriage would change. Yeah, she stopped talking to me. Truth hurts. But it's like we got to get with people where we start teaching them how to get close to God. Nothing else matters. Don't worry about your marriage. Don't worry about trying to work things out. Let God change you. Get in His Word. Get, close to Him. Get, drawn to Him where He draws you in. See, our theme for our church this year wasn't prosperity. Wasn't trying to get all we can out of God. Our theme was to deny and die to ourselves so we could get hid in God. And that if someone wanted to find us, they would have to go through God to get a hold of us. Because I don't like religion. So when I get some religious nut coming up to me, doing the praise God thing and all that, I'm like I said, I'm who I am. I'll say something. And then I hurt their little girl feelings and they run off. Come on, I'm used to making grown men cry, so, it's nothing new. Because when you get people that want God and all they want is God, then there's a connection. There's change that's happening. We enter into a dynamic area where we actually see God move and we see doors open. So we just bought a mobile home. We were looking for everything in the world, condo, townhome, and this mobile home. It's only 5 minutes from the church. So they wanted $160,000 for it. Okay. Our mortgage payment would have been $1,500. We're good. So the appraiser went in there. They advertised it as a 4-bedroom. It was technically a 3-bedroom that they added on. And the appraiser appraised it at $123,000. It dropped our mortgage payment from $500 to $900. You tell me God does not work when people are working together to get as close to Him, and God doesn't open doors. God doesn't move in our favor. God doesn't, do things in a great way. See, I've learned to appreciate the small things that God does in my life. Because when He does the big things, I'm not like, whoa, did that really happen? I'm like, thank you, Lord. Because this is where I should be. But we got to get with people where we're teaching them how to look for God this way. That they're learning to be obedient, not to a man, but to God. Too many people want to be close to the pastor. I won't say it. It'd be so crude. You guys will look at me like, Pastor Mike will walk up and just smack me. But they want to be so close. And it's like they worship a man. They're worshiping an idol instead of a God. And we need to teach them how to worship God and be obedient to God. Because when they do that, everything else will work out. They don't need counseling. They don't need drug rehab. How many drug addicts has God delivered and taken heroin out of? Or taken meth out of? You tell me there's not a God in heaven that cannot change someone. I will tell you you're a liar going to hell. Woo! But it's obedience. It's being connected to God. I don't want no one connected to me. As long as they get connected to God, then they're good. And God will begin to do things in their lives that will be so dynamic and changing. And through that, He teaches them to submit to Him. They don't need to submit to me. If they submit to God first, they'll be submissive in a way that we don't need to dominate or manipulate. So I'm going to leave you guys with this last little quote, word story. So Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. You know why? It was never their job to put Humpty together again. It's not our job to fix people. That's God's job. We try to get in there and fix people, and it's not our job. It's God's job to get in there and begin to change and rearrange their lives and heal everything that's going on in them. We got to quit doing that, and we need to teach people how to get in there and get connected to God where He can do this.